the best thing that you can do in life to bring joy to yourself is to help other people. That's the cure to everything.
Steve, welcome.
Hello, Brian. How are you?
Absolutely fantastic. Nice to have the opportunity to be on Instagram here for you with everyone.
Well, greetings to all your followers and congratulations for the great performance this year in a really difficult time. Great job by the entire team.
Thank you. Yeah, it's an entire team effort, and the ability to do this year has been unbelievable. And it's just, I mean, the paradox of emotions of starting the year off what we thought was normal, and planning your plan, working your plan, to a global pandemic and just that fight or flight mentality. And I'm so proud of so many of our leaders who really leaned into this and understood that the leader's responsibility is to create culture, and creating culture is about taking care of your people and listening and just learning about what people need. And the blending of our personal and professional lives has been nothing like we've ever experienced. And by the way, I hope we never have to experience again. So, I think it's been something we've all had to deal with. So I'm so thankful for our Banfield team. So I know our team and on anyone who's listening to this I'd love to get your perspective on this. And I think before we give your perspective, I would just love for you to tell everyone a little bit about yourself and your journey. I think it's such an important one for everyone to learn.
Well, thank you, Brian. And again, congrats to the team who did great things in a tough year. So I grew up in California, surrounded by nature, and was an explorer kind of by heart, just going into those various places. My parents really enabled that dream by taking me to the library to read about professional explorers. So that dream was really early in my life. I started drawing pictures of astronauts, even at the age of 6. Went on to college for a couple of degrees, got a pilot's license, worked for IBM, and then became a NASA engineer and then an astronaut. It was just an incredible experience to ride that beast into space.
That is absolutely fantastic, and it's so brilliant. I actually love. I know we've talked about space before because I love space, and I did not have what it takes to do what you did. And I remember my class I had taken in college. I had an elective, and I just was fascinated with the solar system and everything. So I had taken astronomy, and it was about a week after being in the class, the professor came up to me and said, "You realize this is actually physics 101?" and I was pretty sure there was some feedback that was in there somewhere. But I absolutely loved it, and I learned so much, and it's kind of been a little passion of mine is to stay in tune on that. So I'd love to ask some questions about that later. But when you think about your journey, though, you experienced some challenges early in life, and maybe talk to the group, tell the group a little bit about what those challenges were, what kept you going.
Yeah, anytime that you have this really big goal that you're passionate about, you're able to weather the storms. And when you get kicked in the teeth or fall to the ground or make a mistake or have bad luck, you're able to continue because of this mindset that explorers have and high achievers have. And so for me, along the way, I had a near-death experience at the age of 15, 11-day hospital stay, which, was a really close call. But I came out of that with this new lessons in resilience, this new kind of life philosophy to make sure that you simplify your life and can identify what the important things are, including big dreams and how to find joy and balance. After that hospital stay, the Air Force rejected me from going to the Air Force Academy, and the only pathway to becoming an astronaut was through the military. And so in some ways the dream was dead at that point. But you've got to pivot in these tough times and come up with new creative solutions. So I went to college, got a couple engineering degrees, and as I said before, worked for IBM and NASA. But when I started applying to NASA, they didn't want me either. So over a 10-year period, they rejected me 4 times. And of course, again, it's each case, it's this really disappointing moment. But if you are passionate about what you've selected to pursue, it gives you that spirit and that energy to continue to grind through the effort. And that each time these bad things happen, you view them as learning opportunities to be better. It's a completely different way to look at life and to look at these bad things that happen along the way. So eventually, NASA did select me, but I was only able to persevere because of this resilience that came from the hospital stay, but practicing, looking for the big dream, grinding through, looking for these opportunities, or using these opportunities to be learning experiences.
That's fantastic. And I mean, the grit and resilience needed on that. And that's something that we've been talking about at Banfield. Once we came out of COVID, it doesn't change the services that pets need, and that connectedness that all our associates have to truly make a better world for pets, and that a connection on that purpose is so powerful. So can you talk a little bit about resilience and the importance of resilience and grit just in general?
Yeah, so, I view our combined efforts as a team approach to moving forward. When you see the Earth from space, it changes the way you look at things. It looks like an island in this vast black ocean. And if you live on an island, you want to take care of the island.
Sure.
So that's all the sustainability and environmental things. But also, it is one global community. And when you look, there's no borders. And so we're all on this island together. And that kind of spiritual reckoning all astronauts go through, it's called the overview effect. And when you have that feeling, you realize it's a team effort. It's not about me, it's about the team. And so at NASA, we're trying to make people's lives better by our effort. And for those in the pet healthcare business, that's what they're trying to do too. They're trying to have this effort as a team to make people's lives better. It's a glorious goal, something that they should be so proud of and receive inspiration from. And when things get tough, when this pandemic hit, for example, and you've got pets that, the owners can't even come in with the pets anymore, and all these really big challenges.
Right.
The reason that you will persevere is because you chose something you're passionate about, and it's worth it. This wonderful goal at the end to help everybody as a team, to provide passion. I mean, you're in a passion industry basically. And so for me, when I got kicked in the teeth on my path, I was able to keep going because the end goal was so important to me and had such worthy goals. And I think that's what your employees and teams have seen this year.
Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. And I want to come back to a question related to that connection to the purpose and you talked about the goals. Before I do though, because my question is going to be about when you're in space, but we got to get you to space. All right. So that you've had this whole dream your whole life from, a child drawing pictures about being an astronaut and being in space. But to get there, you've got to take off. So what's your mindset being on this rocket ship that's it's like, so at 17,500 miles per hour, I can't even comprehend that. I mean, what is it like just sitting there waiting to go into space?
Wow, just talking about it brings back all these great memories. So, I was almost 35 by the time I was sitting in Endeavour ready to launch. And so for me, it was a great relief because this very turbulent path had come true. The goals had come true. I really was really well prepared, and I knew we had a great team, so I wasn't scared in any way. I was more concerned about my family, who would watch this thing go into space and would worry that something bad would happen. And that's really why I view them as the heroes of the space program. But I was prepared. I mean, just meticulously prepared to go. So from a professional standpoint, no problem. I mean, that 8.5 minute ride into space is like being on a really, really old wooden, very painful roller coaster ride where you're being thrown left and right, up and down, forward and back. But you are going to a place you've dreamed of. The acceleration is intense. We go from the launch pad to, as you said, 17,500 miles an hour in just 8 minutes. So I experienced 3 times gravity. So I weighed about 600 pounds. But bam, when the engines turn off and you just kind of float out of your seat, I mean, for our viewers today, imagine the room you're in. What would it be like if we could turn gravity off? It's bizarre. It's this bizarre, magical place. And so for me, it was just a dream come true. And of course, as we talked about, when you look out the window and see the Earth, it really, you've got the zero gravity and this beautiful Earth to look at.
So I had a question that came in on this. Someone wanted to know, what does it feel to be like microgravity? That's what their specific question was. So describe that.
Yeah, so a couple really interesting things happen in microgravity. The first is you get taller. So some people have a little bit of back pain, but most people don't. And it's because there's no gravity. So your spine actually elongates about 1 to 2 inches. When you come back to Earth, that goes away. It goes back to normal height. But if you think about it, everything's floating around in the capsule, including everything inside your body. And so space sickness is not uncommon. I'd say about 70 to 80% of the astronauts get sick that first couple hours. I threw up 100 times in my 4 flights. It's not fun. We have a special container for those of you who are interested in that part of the equation. But, the body is really resilient. And for most astronauts, they get better after a day or two. And we do have some medicine But in terms of eating, it's normal. You don't really need gravity to eat. Kind of the muscles in your throat kind of work things down. It's a little bit weird to wake up on the ceiling. Usually I would sleep on the ceiling, and you wake up and you've never slept on the ceiling before, so it's a bit strange. It kind of spins your gyros a little bit.
That's pretty cool. I mean, if I had the opportunity, I would sleep on the ceiling too. That's amazing. All right. So the question I was going to ask. So now, I mean, the amount of spacewalking, the time in spacewalk, when you retired, you're the third most experienced spacewalker. So you're outside, you're in space. Let's call it what it is. That's why my professor said, you realize this is physics, right? So not all makes sense. But so you're in space, you're fixing the Hubble telescope. And this, I think, is important because often our leaders or anyone in our associates, we get bogged down on the day-to-day of the task at hand, the phone that's ringing, the patient that's in front of us, the client we have to talk to about whatever that may be. But your job is not just to fix the telescope. What you're doing actually is going to unlock mysteries of the universe. How do you differentiate between the task at hand and to the bigger purpose?
Great question. When you're in the thick of it, what astronauts are trained to do is focus on that thing right at that moment. If the Hubble Space Telescope, right before my launch, they told me it was worth $6 billion. So when I got there, I was really well trained. I was really nervous about making a mistake. So I was focused. I was really focused. And so, the task at hand is the most important one. The customer that's there is the most important one. If you find that it drains your batteries a little bit or, it's exhausting, no job is perfect. I mean, being an astronaut sounds great. There are times when it was not enjoyable and it was difficult. But you always remember the big picture. That's how we've gotten through COVID. We remember we're trying to help the elderly and solve this giant problem. We're team members. It's the same thing when you're in the thick of it. You're concentrating for that moment. But then when you have a moment to reflect, if it's not the best time, you just remember these pictures at the Hubble Space Telescope are going to tell us the history of the universe. If I help this customer, they are going to be joyous today. We will have saved their animal's life. Whatever it is, it's that passion that you've picked to pursue that makes all the difference. And it helps you weather the storm. It also, the best thing that you can do in life to bring joy to yourself is to help other people. That's the cure to everything. And my gosh, that's what your business is all about, is helping other people and their loving animals. Yeah.
Well, specifically during COVID, we always knew the human-animal bond was strong. During COVID, it is actually said it's stronger. People, as sheltering in place, adoption centers, humane societies across the country are without pets for the first time in many of their history, because we're looking for that compassion and that love that we get from pets. So that's great advice, and it's a great reminder, because when we can remain focused on that bigger picture of truly keeping pets and people together, we're making society better as well. So that's fantastic. Okay, so now you're in space. Was it everything that you expected? Describe it. Like what was it like?
Yes, nothing can prepare you for the magic of zero gravity. We have a couple ways we can simulate it on the ground. But, the true magic of, for example, being able to create this giant water ball that's just kind of floating in the middle of the cabin, and being able to throw an M&M into it, or to be able to hold your breath and stick your face into this giant water ball and open your eyes. I mean, some of the things you just can't really appreciate until you're there. I think seeing the grandeur of the Earth, I mean, I knew it would be spectacular, but this effect it has on those who are able to, lucky enough to see it from there, is more than I could have imagined. And It really begs the question, would the world be a different place if we could send all the leaders into the world so that they could see that we are on an island that we need to take care of, and we need to take care of each other?
Oh, that's absolutely powerful, and I can only just imagine. I mean, just seeing the pictures of it is just inspiring, and it creates a lot of perspective as well. So, a few other last questions here for you. NASA, well, I mean, what an amazing organization, responsible for literally bringing us into new frontiers, but so many innovations, and it's an inspiring story. Can you maybe talk a little bit about NASA and just the culture there as well?
Sure, you bet. Yeah, well, we have big things we're trying to achieve. So we have these amazing goals, and they involve a lot of danger along the way. So what we've developed is what I'll call extreme teaming, and it has kind of the core elements of what all big teams do. We make sure everyone understands what the big goal is. We understand what the culture is of the organization. Each person knows exactly what their job is. Each person's allowed to do their job. Each person understands that if they don't do their job perfectly, it affects the whole team. So those are the classics. But what I think is unique about NASA that allows us as a team to achieve more, TEAM, together everyone achieves more, is that we are a very social organization. We do a lot of socializing outside of work. In the pandemic time, that takes more of an effort because it involves using technology more rather than hugging or having a meal together. In this technology age, for example, I don't do telephone calls without video anymore. I always want to see the person. I always start the conversation off rather than the business topic at hand, just connecting. How are you doing? How's your family? What movie are you watching on TV? So we are really a social organization, incredibly close, almost like family. And that makes us more efficient in good times and more resilient in bad times. The other thing we do is we really encourage a giving culture. That's where you're giving things to your colleagues without expecting things in return, which would be a taker. So Adam Grant, who's very popular on social media, is talking about this giving culture where you give advice, give your time, give accolades. And it really makes the team much stronger and perform better.
That's absolutely fantastic. Great. I appreciate hearing that and sharing that. So Phil, I just noticed a question that came down here, asked a question I think lines up very nicely to best career advice. Like, what's some advice you can give and to our group of leaders? I know you have some really awesome words on this one.
Yes, I collect all kinds of advice, and I encourage all of you to kind of collect a toolbox or a quiver of best practices. For me, clearly the best advice I can provide anyone of any age comes from my experience in that hospital many years ago, where I learned to live life a certain way. And these are really complicated times. There's lots of demands on our time, both personally and at your profession. And so how do we find joy? How do we find balance? How do we find the really important goals to seek? And the way we do that is a 3-word slogan. It's simplify your life. You've got to simplify your life, ladies and gentlemen. Otherwise, you're not going to find balance or joy. And I do that 3 ways. I always have a priority list in my mind, and I live to it. So you've got to have this priority list in your mind that's applicable to that moment. It's different now than it will be Wednesday or Saturday at noon, for example. The second thing is you have to get rid of the noise in your life. That can be material items. Maybe you have too much stuff. Maybe there's things on your priority list you have to get off, etc. So you need to simplify your life by having a priority list, getting rid of the noise. And the final thing I'll say is just quit wasting time. With all of the different options out there, all the shiny objects kind of available to us, all the special videos on the internet, etc. You've got to find a way to find balance between joy and having too much time that you're wasting. Because if you can just save 10 minutes a day, that's 3 full days at the end of the year. Simplify your life.
That's absolutely powerful. All right, last 2 questions. I got to have a fun one. We talked about it before. It's the question you always get most asked. Aliens, are they here? What's the story? What's going on with alien life form?
So, 10 years ago, that was a question that was rarely asked. When it was, the whole crowd would laugh. But now it's actually the most popular question. And for me, the answer is definitely. I think there's other living things in the universe. And that's because in our neighborhood alone, there's 200 billion stars. Our neighborhood's called the Milky Way. One star that's near us is called the sun, and it has life nearby. So I'm sure some of those other 200 billion stars have something nearby. But then the Hubble Space Telescope has told us there's more than one neighborhood. In fact, there's hundreds of millions or maybe even a trillion galaxies in the universe. So if you do the math, to me, there has to be something out there. Maybe it's like a little microbe, or maybe it's something that's, got 27 arms, is orange, and, 100 feet tall. I mean, who knows? So, but I do think there's something out there in the universe. We'll find it.
That's great. I couldn't resist asking that question. So the last question, we talked to a lot of our leaders at Banfield, and this is going out to a bunch of pet lovers out there. So we have to know, are you a pet lover? And, what role do pets play in your life?
Yeah, of course, a huge pet lover. Growing up, always had a cat or a dog or both. bunny rabbits, guinea pigs, hamsters, gerbils.
Awesome.
Mom never would let me have a snake, unfortunately, but so we were really surrounded with pets. And you know, it really had kind of two influences on my life. One is I think that pets help you create your skill set in terms of emotional intelligence, in terms of responsibility of taking care of something that really depends on you for their life. And so for that, I'm forever grateful for having animals in our life. We did the same with our children, provided the animal environment all of the time. And we have two family members who now work for Mars also. So we have one veterinarian, my daughter, she's at Blue Pearl emergency vet. And then I have a niece who's in Southern California at a Banfield hospital as a shift lead and a veterinarian's assistant. So, you know, it's not a surprise that some of the members of our family have taken it to their profession. They have found that's their passion.
I absolutely love it. Well, Steve, thank you so much. I want to give you the last word. Any final comments? But before I do, just thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your perspective on resiliency and grit, and just your experience is tremendous. And I know everyone's going to get so much from it and so many takeaways. And like I said, I've got plenty of notes, and I love the advice. So any final words from you?
Yes, you know, just a reminder, we live on an island in this vast black ocean, so we need to take care of the island and of each other. We need to promote peace and harmony and work as a team. And on your individual level, you know, you will find success if you seek these big goals. And along the way, you develop this resiliency by doing the hard work, thinking the things, or realizing that the setbacks are these amazing learning opportunities. And you need to come up with these creative solutions to get by them. It's not usually option A, B, or C. It's often option X that no one else is thinking about. And the way that you can make that happen is to simplify your life.
I love it. Simplify your life. Well, Steve, thank you very much. And everyone who's joined us today, thank you very much for all the waves, the high fives, the comments, everything. I cannot thank you all enough for joining, and thank you all for what you do every single day.